and the owner of the hotel came to me and said, what's the problem? So they didn't give me a spoon. So I don't have a chumash, what am I supposed to do?
Hold on top of the VCR.
On top of the VCR, boys.
Alright, so we're opening up the Pasha Vayichi. We're opening up to chapter Mem Tes, Posik Aleph. But this is after we've already been told that Yankee Avinu is just prior to his halfish from the world, whatever that may mean. And he's already called Yosef, and he's given Yosef a shavua that he should take him to Eretz Yisrael. And he's blessed the two sons of Yosef, Menashe and Ephraim. And the pasuk begins, Vayikro Yaakov el Bano. That Yaakov called to Bano would imply that he called to all of his sons. Not just to Yosef and his sons, but to all of them. Vayema Heyosfu, gather together, assemble. If you don't hold your legs straight, if you don't mind, thanks. V'yosfu v'yagidu lachem, and I will tell you, Eish asher yikro eschem v'yachris hayomim. And I will tell you what is going to happen to you guys, eschem v'yachris hayomim, in the what you might call the finality of days, the ultimate time of, or the end of day, I suppose it's called the end of day. So the intelligent readers are immediately taken by those words, Acharis Hayomim, which tends to imply a very, specific but distant time, the end of days, something to do with finality. And then he repeats and he says, Yikobtsu, must gather together. Well, that's the same as the word Hiyosfu. But it's in a slightly different form to assemble together or to gather together in the form of a group. V'shimu b'nei Yaakov, and you must listen, my children, that calls him the name like b'nei Yaakov on his own name. V'shimu el Yisrael avichem. You must listen, and then he calls himself by his more elevated name, what we call the Shem HaMayla, the Inyan of Yisrael, avichem, your father. And then he goes on with a whole series of statements to the various Shvatim, to the various tribes, but it's well known that he leaves out Shimon Valevi from what you might call the brachas, even though he has something sharp to say about them. So the varying opinions, what are all those long statements to the Shvatim? Are they blessings, or are they like foretellings of what's going to be with them during their development as tribes and during their histories? The Even Ezra tying us immediately here on the spot that they're not blessings, that they're like nevuahs, that's what things that are going to occur to the Shvatim, but not necessarily all of them are blessing. As we see with Shimon and Levi, he's very sharp. So we have to understand, how does that fit in with what he began saying? That he said I'm going to gather together Vagido Lochem, and I will tell you, Ish Asher Yikra Eschem B'Achrisa Hayomi. But that would tend to imply that he's going to tell them and reveal to them something which is going to be at the end of days, in the finality of all times. Even if we look carefully into all the blessings, if we call them blessings, but as I said, a lot of the Rishonim learn that they're not necessarily blessings, but they're like prophecies, then how do we find in that all the singing of the Achris Hayomim? We don't really find very much mention at the end of all days the different things that Yaakov said to his son, excepting in reference to Yehuda, he mentions that he will be, from him will come out Melech HaMashiach. And he does mention, even according to Rashi, in Pshutei, the simple meaning of the text, that it refers to Melech HaMashiach. But most of the blessings, if we call them that, or most of the statements don't openly relate to the end of days per se, but all sorts of inyanim in the middle. So what happened to that statement, Asher Yikra Eschem B'Achrisa Hayomi? So comes along Rashi. Rashi makes a well-known, famous policy statement in reference to that. V'yagidu lochem, and I will tell you what's going to happen to you. The hemshich is what's going to happen to you. Le'achris hayomim. So Rashi says, and it's brought here in this Chumash in the name of the Bereshis Rabbah. He brings at the beginning, it's written in the brackets Bereshis Rabbah, what that means from the Medrash Rabbah. But there's other Chumashim where they bring it down in the name of another source, in the Gemara in the Sector Pesachim, not from the Medrash Rabbah. Anyway, we'll see about that as we go along. Bikesh legalis es hakeitz. Yaakov wanted, literally, he intended, he had a strong desire and yearning, legalis es hakeitz, to reveal the finality of days. Now, the word kates, you can't really have a mistake as to what kates means. Kates means the end. And when we say kates, in Pashtus, we mean the end of all history, which is Mashiach, or even maybe even after Mashiach. Maybe even the in other words, mamish the kates. So Yaakov Avinu bikish legalis es hakeitz. He wanted to reveal the end of what you might call everything, the end of all days. And all of a sudden the Shekhinah withdrew from him, or how do you call it, rose up from its presence with him. But that implies that he had the Shekhinah together with him. But all of a sudden the Shekhinah was mistalik when he wanted to reveal this kates. V'hischil oimer dvarim achedim, and therefore Yaakov Avinu began to say other things, and he had charota about saying the kates. He decided he wouldn't do it because he saw the Shekhinah went away from him, and therefore he began to say other inyanim. So what are other inyanim? The other inyanim we have to say are from what he said to the Shvatim, and we look carefully in that, we don't find necessarily that it talks about the Afsayom. Just in one or two places it mentions Melech HaMashiach, but all the things he says to the Shvatim don't concern what we would think was the Taich Afsayom, particularly not the Kates. So therefore, Rashi says that due to the fact that he saw that the Shekhinah went away from him, and therefore he decided to say other things. So this is not the first time that Rashi told me in this Sedra that Yaakov Avinu wanted to do that. Because you're all aware and you're all familiar, everybody knows, that right at the beginning of the Sedra, Rashi said that in the very first Rashi on the Sedra, Parsha Vayichi, Rashi said, Vayichi Yaakov Beretz Mitzrayim. Rashi said, Lama Parsha Zu Stuma. Why is this a closed parsha. But you guys are familiar with what's a parsha stuma and a parsha pesucha. Well, I see from the vigorous notes that everybody is that in the Sefer Torah you can have a parsha which starts right underneath all the other shuleis, or you have a parsha which goes in a few space of a few oisias and then starts off. In other words, it's like a paragraphic gap between the beginning of the line and it, and then it goes on, and then it finishes and starts off either. So, or you can have a parsha where there's only a gap of a certain number of oisias, and then the next parsha starts off even on the same line. So, a parsha stuma means one that starts off mamish on the same line as the previous parsha. This is the gap of a few oisias to indicate this is a new parsha. But it doesn't start off a new line with a gap at the beginning of the line. So Rashi calls that a parsha stuma. That's what we call it in the lashon of Poskim. That's what we call a parsha stuma. So Rashi says, why is this parsha a parsha stuma? In other words, that normally most of the sedras of the week, most of the weekly sedras begin. The parsha begins with a new parsha with an open space and a whole new line. And this one doesn't. This one runs on to Parsha Vayichi with just a gap of a few oisias to show us that like there's a pause, but it starts on the same line. So it's called a Parsha Stuma. It's unusual for a weekly Seder to be like that. So therefore Rashi says, why is that like this? Why is this Parsha a Parsha Stuma? So Rashi says two tirutzim. When you're familiar, everybody can chorus me to tirutzim back, but we'll say them just for the sake of just maybe somebody might remember the chorus exactly as he should be able to give it back. But Rashi says two reasons. The first reason is, he said that this parsha deals with the passing of Yaakov Avinu, and from the moment that Yaakov Avinu passed away, then Nishtamu Eineim V'Liben Shel Yisrael, and literally the hearts and the eyes of the Yidden became blocked because of the tzoros that began shortly after Yaakov Avinu's it began the tzoros of the shibud, the enslavement to Mitzrayim. Then Rashi says another dova acher. Says Rashi, shebikish legalish kates lebono. Yaakov Avinu wanted to reveal the end of all days to his sons. Kates lebonov. V'nishtam mimenu, and it was hidden from him. So that's why this is a parsha stuma. That's why this is a parsha that just runs on in the same line to indicate to us that Yaakov Avinu was hidden. He was blocked from being able to tell the kates to his son. So we see that this seems to be quite an important theme in the whole parsha. Parsha Vayichi, right at the beginning, Rashi says a general thing about the parsha. He doesn't say right on the contrary. Vayichi Yaakov was the beginning of the pasuk that Rashi quotes, and he doesn't seem to talk about that. He just says Lama Pashazu Stuma. But if we wanted, we could darshan that for hours. That even though Rashi said it's a stuma, nonetheless he begins his pirush with the words Vayichi Yaakov. But I can see that everybody's very sort of up to the end of so much hard work during the week in Avodas Hashem, in Avodas HaLimud, in Avodas HaTfilah, and in all those inyanim, that everybody's a little bit sort of droopy. So therefore, we can't go on too long and to be married in the whole premise that in that Indian that Rashi begins Vayichi Yaakov. And he says, nonetheless, it was Parsha Stuma. Anyway, whatever. So we go on, and we see that Rashi says in the second pshat that Yaakov wanted to reveal the kates, but it was Nishtam. So right at the beginning of the Parsha, Rashi tells us that Yaakov Avinu was Hedikot. He was working at this time when he was in Mitzrayim, or prior towards the end of his time in Mitzrayim, he was working to be Megala the kates to his son. Who should do it? What would he see? What would be the point and the benefit in revealing the kates to his son? But nonetheless, we see he did. Okay, fine. Then we get all the way over here into Perek Mem Tes, with already quite a few events in the parsha have already gone through, and then we see even before he actually passes away, Yaakov Avinu, then we see it once again. He calls all his sons together. He said, "Gather all together, because I have something very important to tell you." And Rashi says, "Who he do is that he wanted to be legalis sakate, bikesh legalis sakate." But here it's written that nistaltu min shechina. Now, how do we know that the Shechina was with Yaakov? No? So we could say that in that two inyanim, we could say Aleph, the Azar Givaldik Tzaddik, like Yaakov, you know, that the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya in Perek Lamed Daled. The Alter Rebbe brings it. They always hein. I know he brings it in 3 places. Not only in Perek Lamed Daled, but in Perek Lamed Daled he says a bit more about it. That always hein ha merkova. That the forefathers of Avraham, Yitzchak, Vayichi, they were a chariot to Elikus. They were bottles. The Alter Rebbe says in Perek Lamed Daled that they were Makadishes, Evrahim. It's called Gufam, it's called Evrahim, it's called Nafsho. Azay to Elikus, that everything they did, they were just an expression of it. They were bottles, Lakamri. Therefore he calls them a chariot. The Medrash calls them a chariot. So Yaakov Avinu was a chariot to Elikus. So maybe we could just assume that always the Shechina was with him. But of course you remember from your Chitas, just a short while back, Rashi told us that Yaakov Avinu was not well at this point. He was, how do you call it, Choyle Rachmanin Yitlan. So it's written when he called to Yosef, it's written by Ishtachvu Yisrael al Reish Hamitah, that he bowed down when he knew Yosef was coming, or he saw Yosef was coming in, he bowed down to the head of the bed, literally. If you don't mind, don't swipe sweeps of water while we're learning, okay? Do it at the beginning and at the end of, while we're learning, we don't, do that, okay? So Rashi says, a very amazing thing, that Rashi says that he was actually bowing down to Yosef. Rashi brings it, even a fox at its best time, if it comes to power, then you should bow down to the whole business there. Without going into what that means, then Rashi says that Al Rosh Hamito, Rashi says that he turned when he bowed down towards the Shechina. He didn't want to bow directly to Jesus, he turned towards the Shechina. Rashi says because a Shechina Matsuya B'mitos is a Choyle, that where somebody's not well, then the Shechina is together with him. So that's not a good reason to get not well. Say, oh, okay, that's a Gewaldige Eitzah. Get not well, and then the Shechina will be with me. Is it? It's not an Eitzah. You have to be gesund and starik in order that you'll be able to carry out all the things which there's a very famous letter from the Friedrich Rebbe. It's put down in the Tehillim again in the Kikuy, it's a Miktorium, where the Friedrich Rebbe writes, Ayid darf sein gesund. That's how it starts. You have to be healthy. So if you look in that here, you'll see all the reasons what he brings over there. Oh well, funny. Rashi says that on the Rosh of Amitah, that Ashchina is Nimtzes Lamaila Mirashayov Shal Choyle. On the head of the bed of the Choyle, so come to us that the Shechina was Belavachi. In this case, it was anyway with Yankee, because it was Al Rosh Amitah. So Yaakov Avinu was able to see the Shechina, he was able to observe. Being as he was a Merkava, Telekus, he could observe the Shechina, and he saw that when he was Mavakish, Legalis, Sakate, that it went away from him in the Shechina. And therefore he decided that he would say other things. So we have to say, not Devarim Acheirim absolutely, Mamish Legamri, because there are also Nevuahs. Everything Yaakov Avinu says is a Nevuah, so he said, Nevuahs, and he also mentioned the Inifan, the Geulah Shleima, the Melech HaMashiach, but he didn't actually talk the whole time about Achis HaYom. So the interesting thing is where does Rashi know that Yaakov was Vayichi legalis is Hakes? How does he know that? I mean, we don't really see any open indication, except for the words Achris Hayom. The word Achris Hayomim, well, that tends to indicate, comes on the Ramban. Ramban says that Achris Hayomim l'chol ha'deyos b'kol mokim kavanose al Yemois HaMoshiach. So Ramban says that wherever it's written Achris Hayomim, then everybody agrees that that's referring to this man of Yemois HaMoshiach. They state in the Ramban. But it's interesting that some people don't quite agree with that. And they want to say that by Balak it's written, by Bilam rather, it's written that when Bilam failed with his whole mission, he said he's gonna go away and so on and so forth. Then he said, he said to Hayomim, and it stated in the Medrash that that's referring to what would be this man David HaMelech. So David HaMelech was the beginning anyway of Melech HaMashiach, and therefore Achris Hayomim is also Koilo, the Inim from this man Melech HaMashiach. But it's a bit of a push to say that. In Pashtus, it means in a later, much later point in the history of your peoples or your tribe or whatever it happens to be. So therefore, some people say that cloud that the Ramban puts down, such an iron-clad cloud, that wherever we say Achris Hayom is referring to Moshiach, Lav Davke. Upon him, nonetheless, it would appear here that when Yaakov Avinu at this moment wants to tell his son something very special, and he calls it Achris Hayomim, then he's referring to a very far ahead point. And the far Rashi learns that's referring to the case, but he needs some sort of, if we look, there's a cloud, the Rebbe Melech Moshiach brings it in many places, that when Rashi is referring to a certain Inyan and that he's building his pshat, then he brings that in the heading that he quotes from the Pasuk. It's called the Dibur HaMatchil. Whatever Rashi is referring to, that's a big part in the Gemara also. You guys have probably been taught by your teachers. Whatever Rashi quotes from the Gemara, and then he makes a comment, it's only on that point that he's commenting, not on anything else. Therefore, you can't learn into Rashi something that's not written in the words of that little piece of the Gemara that he's quoting. But sometimes people like to learn that Rashi's hinting at this thing. But you can't do that. You can only learn whatever is the Dibur HaMashkil, that's what Rashi is talking about. Lo yoter. And the same with Tosef. Even though Tosef is built on all sorts of inyanim from other sugyas, he's only talking about that particular point that he quotes. Those words and no more. So the same thing here in the Chumash, when Rashi quotes a certain point, and that's his heading, that he's basing himself on that. So Rashi only quotes V'yagidu lachem, and I will tell you. And then he's bikshish legalis is hakate. He wanted to be megala the case. So if Rashi was building entirely on the words Achris Hayomim, then he should have quoted the whole thing. He said V'yagidu lachem mashiyikru lachem ba'achris Hayomim, but he doesn't mention Achris Hayomim Rashi. This is V'yagidu lachem. So Agidu lachem, I will tell you. I mean, that was it could be anything. Agidu lachem, I'm going to tell you. And yet, that's what Rashi quotes. And then immediately on that, he says, BK, Yaakov Legalis is a case. I mean, how does Rashi know that Agidu lachem is the biggest Legalis is a case? So L'chayra comes along the Sifsei Chachamim, and he wants to say, when you first look at it, looks as if he sort of, but later when you misbeinain, then L'chayra's got a point. And he says that because there are two Lashonos here, and the Rebbe, Melech HaMashiach, points out in the Sikha that they're not just two expressions, but they're two psukim. And Rashi says, first of all, the Pasuk says, you should gather together, and I'll tell you what's going to be Be'achris Hayomim. And then he says, he called to Vishimu, El Yaakov Yisrael Avim, what he's going to tell you literally. So the Sifsei Chom said, what do you need? Heyosvu v'hikabtu. You like two gather together and then gather together. So it's like you've already gathered together to hear one thing, And all of a sudden he says, no, gather together and nothing, just listen to me. So on that basis, he said the fact that there are like two requests to gather together and pay attention, then only the second one gets a long explanation. What did he really say? He said all the blessings, or the nevuahs, or the rebuking, so whatever you call it, that he said to the sons. Yeah. So, but what's with the first one? What happened with the first one? Yeah, he asked for a gidul, and we don't really know what what he actually said. We don't know what that is. So therefore, Rashi comes along and he said, "Gidul lachem." We don't know what that is. It's a mamish eyes in the zah. Rashi limits himself purely to that expression, "Gidul lachem." Was from them. It seems that that's what's bothering him. In other words, what is lacking here? We don't know what he said. And I have no idea what he said. And the fact, Ayesh Leima, that even though it's written at the end of the pasuk, Achri Sayomim, which means the Ramban tells us that means B'chol Makim Yemois HaMashiach, and the end of time. That Rashi is building on that. Particularly that the next pasuk says, "He kapsu, gather together," and I'm going to tell you, listen to what I'm going to say. And we see all sorts of nevuahs, some of which deal with the Yemois HaMashiach and Melech HaMashiach, or some don't. So maybe Rashi saw from that this first dibur is lacking a beer. We don't really know what did he really say. Well, Gidol Lachem follows from the whole way that the things shape up. We don't know what he really said. Mahu Hama. And ever Rashi said, since we see all these other things were nevuahs, and they included also Melech HaMashiach, therefore the fact that it's written here together with Gidol Lachem, also Achrim Sayomim, therefore it's possible to assume that he meant here Mamish the Achri Sayomim Sheba Achri Sayom. The emphasis, what you might call summing up of the whole Achri Sayomim, well, that's Kate's Hagiul, Kate's Kolador. And it's very interesting that Rashi just says Kate. Well, we're going to see in the Gemara calls it a certain name, but Rashi just calls it the Kate. And then he saw that Nishtaufen, the man of Shechina, that the Shechina withdrew from him. So therefore he understood that this is, Mashu lo kach glatik, as you say in Yiddish, it's not so straight and simple, this whole thing. And therefore he felt, it was better that he should say, Dvarim Acheidim. In other words, it's not that they're stam Dvarim Acheidim, but they're Lagabi this, what he really had in mind, Berega Ahu, they're Dvarim Acheidim. But they're Dvarim Acheidim, which are Martin to a Yid like Yaakov, and therefore they're prophecies, and they also mention Melech HaMashiach. But they're not Mamish Gilui, Legalis is Hakei, Gilui Hakei. And not just Stam Gilui Hakei. But in order to make it even more pointed, to make it more, what you might call, full of message, what Yaakov Avinu was out to do here, there comes along the Targum, Yenis and Ben Uziel, what's going on, that he brings down the Tana. He was a Tana, and he was a Tana of Rabbi Yochanan and Ben Zakkai, the Rabbi Yenis and Ben Uziel. But he brings down that Yaakov Avinu not only wanted to be the Kates of the Etzem Bias Malch HaMashiach, but he wanted to be Megara the whole Indian of the Yosid Love, the what will be the schar of the tzadikayo and the fulfillment of their schar in Olam Haba, and what will be the punishment of the Rishoyim Rachmanin Iklan, and the Inim from Gan Eden and the Inim from Alam Minisot Inyanim, and also including the case of Malchim Mashiach, but he says also Kitzin Stimayo, all sorts of very hidden things that are connected with the case. In other words, the Inim from Tchios HaMesim and the punishment of the Rishoyim, Achmanin Iklan, but together with that, the schar, the tzadikim, v'chuli v'chuli. For that we see that the Targum Yonasan indicates that if we take it that he's also basing himself on Divrei Chazal, what Rashi, of course, also we're going to see Rashi's quoting either a Medrash, or he's quoting a Gemara, either of the to, or maybe he's borrowing somewhat from both. But the time Yonason for sure also was doing that. So he fills us in the picture that Yaakov Avinu Bikesh Legali says Hakait. He wanted to be Megala, what's going to be Liossi Love, not only just Kate's Malcha Mashiach, but everything will be after Tchias HaMesim, you might call the whole package of all the Inyanim, which will be Bisman Shleimus Kol HaOlam. When the Olam will reach its ultimate Shleimus, Kach V'Kach. So I thought the Shaila, what she do is, was all of a sudden here in the middle of Kilo, almost in the middle of nowhere. Even if we'll say that there is a Hechreach in the Pshutish Mikra that Rashi had, there's two statements, it's not clear what's sort of left in the lurch. What is the first statement? And we can get to the whole idea that there is a place to say that Yaakov Avinu is Bikish Legalis is Hakeitos. But it leaves us with a very famous question, that what would be the big inyan, and how and on what basis would Yaakov Avinu want to do that? Because if you megala the cage to peoples, we're talking about way back, that this was even before Yetzias Mitzrayim. It was even before the actual shibud, enslavement of Golus in Mitzrayim had even begun. But that was going to take, according to what Avraham Avinu was told, it was going to take 400 years. It didn't take a point to 400, it only took 210. Of Al Chaponim, it was supposed to take 400. And so even if that was going to be the case, even let's say that was the case, you also you tell people that they're going to be in Azam for 400 years. They knew that anyway. They knew what Abraham said to Avraham Avinu. And my union just come along and hustle them over, a thing which would doubtless anyway was concerning them. And even let's say that no, he meant the case, how Bei Yosef, then the case of Geulas Mitzrayim, then just imagine if you were to tell peoples at that particular time that they're going to be sitting in Golas for thousands of years, before the case, what sort of tellers would that be? What people would tell? People would fall into a Jewish Rahman in the clan, they would give out. It's not going to be my generation. What have I got to do with it? I haven't even got the courage to say Ad Masai, because I feel all sad Masai. Well, what's the smell? And it's going to take, 3 4 years. So what would it be cloud? What was Yaakov Avinu? Easy Indian Yesh But not only that, we see that this is a cloud god by Yaakov Avinu. It was an Indian that when he saw that the whole thing was closing in a bit, and he saw that after he leaves the world, it's going to be dark and solistic and all those in Yonim and Mitzrayim, then Bikesh Rashi brings it right at the beginning. And Rashi says, by Yechi Yaakov, that's a part of the whole Yechi, that's a part of the whole highest Yaakov Avinu, that he was Mavakish Legalis as a cake. And that must have been some sort of a tikkun to the whole Indian of Nistamu Eineim Shel Yisrael, Parashas Tumah. And it must lead to Ebsa'ini from Levitikite. Vayichi means Levitikite in Pashto. What did he have in mind? Did he want to be Megala, the case? The guitar. Philip played. What was he after? Vod easy dover. That it would appear from what's written in Rashi here, that he was Mevakish Legalis as a cage, the Nistalker Mimen Shchino. Oh, not the cage. The cage wasn't Mistalik Mimeno, it was only the Shchina was Mistalik. Yeah, how do you call it? The Shechina left him. In other words, that Shechina that was there, but he saw that it drew away when he began to be disorderly, he almost said it out. He almost was Mavakish. But I'm sorry, he always was Megaga the case. So ask yourself the question, what happened to Yankee Vavino? Did he also lose the picture of the cage? Or did he not? And so from that lesson that Rashi brings, that it was only Nishtalag Mimena Shechina, and he said, oh, the Shechina doesn't want me apparently to say this, he's chil, yeah, but Dvarim Acherim, but that's hidden by the second pasuk, according to the Sipsat from the Rebbe, Melech Moshe with more beer. But that's what the second pasuk reveals to me, that he already began a whole new series of prophecies. But it doesn't necessarily cancel out the fact that Yaakov Taka knew when the cage was. It's just that he kept it, as you might say, to use the old expression, he kept it under his yarmulke, or under his hat, under his shlapper, or whatever you like to say. But Enoch Hanami, that Yaakov he knew when the cage was. However, we're going to see in the Medrash Rabbah, it comes out, it's written more footage over there, that Yaakov Avinu wanted to be Megala the cage for Nistan Mimenu, and it was hidden from him. In other words, the Eibishter not only would do his Shechina and made a sort of a sign to Yaakov Avinu, or not that, don't go be Megala the cage here, but he took it away from him altogether. And the Medrash Rabbah actually says that there were two people that they tried to be Megala the cage, and Nishtam Mayhem, it was taken away from them, that they themselves couldn't see what it was anymore. And that is Yaakov, and Daniel. I put right at the end of Daniel that he tried to be Megala the cage Hayomin, or the cage Hayomim, it's one other deal. For the Rebbe Melech Moshe, either it's cage Hayomin or it's cage Hayomim. But anyway, he wanted to be, the whole Daniel's concerned with that theme, and then it's written that the Eibusha said to him, Chasim, you have to hide that, put it away, and not say anything more about it. And the Medrash says clearly that Daniel, with those words of the Eibusha, he lost his view of the cage. He tried to be Megala with his Nevuas, but he didn't make it, and therefore he didn't know it himself afterwards when it would be cage. The statement for this twice in the Medrash Rabbah. I do it. Here in Rashi, it doesn't necessarily look that way, that Yaakov lost. And therefore we find in the Gemara, in the Masechta Pesachim, therefore some people say that Rashi is in effect quoting the Gemara in the Masechta Pesachim. But the more we read the Lashon of Rashi, and the more we look in the Gemara, and the more we look in the Medrash, it's hard to know exactly what Rashi is quoting. And here's a very classical example of the fact that Rashi, literally what you might call, modifies in many cases, and even sometimes combines certain Lashonos of our sages from different Makoiros to develop those inyonim to what we call the simple pshat of the pasuk. But Rashi is concerned with pshutei shel Mikra, as is well known, and the Rebbe Melech Moshe developed on tremendous length. Many of the famous secrets about Rashi, that Rashi sometimes sees fit to modify certain statements of our sages in order to fit in exactly how he understands the understanding of that pasuk for the Ben Chomish le Mikra. And if I will see here an interesting case where maybe we could suggest that Rashi is basing himself more on the Gemara than on the Medrash, but maybe not completely and utterly on the Gemara either, but with slight variations. However, what's written in the Gemara is the following: that there's a whole shaila, the Mishnah brings in Masechta Pesachim in the 4th parak. And the Mishnah brings over there that there was people called the Anshe Yerichoi, that they were a group of Chachamim, that they lived in the city of Yerichoi, that they had certain customs, certain minogim that were different than the rest of the Chachamim. So the Mishnah mentions what they were, and it goes listen to what was their time. In other words, they must have been very high people, even the Ein Halacha Kamesha. And the Alter Rebbe brings it down in Kutei Torah in a couple of places, this whole issue, and he explains it according to Timus HaTorah, according to Chassidus. But it's written at the Anshe Yerichoi, they used to say Shema, and they didn't used to say Baruch Shem Kved Malchusei Le'elam Avod. So they didn't say. They went straight from Shema to V'yohavta. The Alter Rebbe reminds me it's a very high madrega, because Baruch Shem Kved Malchusei is even for Yichud B'Tatoah. The Alter Rebbe is Baruch in the Shara Yichud V'Emunah in the second section of the Tanya. The Baruch Shem Kved Malchusei all in the Yichud, in the Havonas HaYichud. They used to go straight from Shema Yisrael, Yichud Ilua, into V'Yohavta. They were high Bali Madregas. So anyway, the Gemara deals with the fact that we say, when we say Kriyat Shema, we say Baruch Shem Kved Malchusei Le'elam Avod after we say the Shema. So the Gemara says, where do we get this inyan from Baruch Shem Kved Malchusei Le'elam Avod? It's not a posik. It's not written in the psukim of the Torah. And also, when Moshe Rabbeinu said Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, he didn't say Baruch Shem Kved Malchusei Le'elam Avod. If you look in Pasha V'Eschanan, where it's written the mitzvah for Kriyat Shema, it's written Shema Yisrael, and immediately afterwards V'yohavta. So the answer Yerichoi, I've got a point. Yeah, in the Torah it's not written Baruch Shem Kved Malchusei Le'elam Avod. So the Gemara says, where do we get this Baruch Shem Kved Malchusei Le'elam Avod? Where do we get it from? So it comes on the Gemara. Ba'anan my tana amrinan le. We. It's the reason why we say it. I'm an after omrim it there. Kedadorish reish lochish. Rabbi Shimon ben Lachish. Or it could be Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi. Anyway, Rabbi Shimon ben Lachish, he was a famous chaver of Rabbi Yochanan. And he was at Amoyel, so it's interesting. Anyway, without going into all the Klali Ashat, which maybe got to do with that in here. Anyway, suffice it to say that what did he say, Rabbi Shimon ben Lachish? Vayikro Yankiv el Bono, Vayim alehem hiyosvu, Bikish Yankiv legalis Kate Hayomin. He was Bakish to be Megala the Kate Hayomin. That's what's written in the Gemara. Rashi doesn't bring Kate Hayomin. Rashi just brings Kate. There's a Kate. So what's Kate Hayomin? You could type that as meaning the right hand Kate, the right hand end of everything. And Takia, it's a very amazing Rashi. And all the great Meforshim say that it's a little bit out of Rashi's usual type of approach. That here in the Gemara, Rashi types it as the Inuf Kate Hayomin, the right hand Kate. Rashi says, why is it called Kate Hayomin? Because at the end of Daniel, it's written that you should go and rest until Kate Hayomim with a mem. Right? So Rashi said there can't be a quote from the Posik, because Kate Hayomim is with a mem over there. So some of the great Meforshim, the Derech HaPnimis, the Rebbe talks about on many occasions, the Kate Hayomim and Kate Hayomin are two different madregas. Well, anyway, Rashi apparently doesn't impute it from the Gemara and the Posik over there. Rashi says, the Posik says Kate Hayomim with the mem Sofi, and here the Gemara says Kate Hayomin with calling it the right hand. So that must mean the right hand. It's not just a posh way of saying days, saying days with a nun instead of a mem. And then Rashi says Kate Hayomin sheyachze yemina lefano. The Eibus will bring his right hand back in front of him. Shoheshiv ocher, that he put it behind his back, because of the enemies of the Jewish peoples. The Eibus to put his right hand behind him. What he's going to do is, the Eibus is going to bring his right hand back to the front. If you're not careful, we'll get somebody with his right hand or his left hand to give you a sock. But he saw that too. We'll give you a keita, your Biblos Rabbi will get you from both sides. Says Rashi, what's going to happen is that David is going to bring back his right hand, which he's put behind him. And that's what's written. You remember the story there in the Gemara Masechet Gittin when Rabbi Yochanan Yochanan ben Zakkai eventually got out to see the Roman Yemat Shemoinik, the one who destroyed Jerusalem. Yeah, and it's written over there that he asked him a certain question. Rabbi Yochanan was a bit cautious and he didn't answer him exactly what he should have answered. And so the Gemara says, Heishiv Chachomim Ocher. So that's based on a posik that Dave says, Heishiv Ocher Yaminoi. That David's taking his right arm, let's put it there, Achman in Islam behind him. Well, Rashi said, but that's the Kates HaYomin, what that means, the Kates of the Pashtas of Melech Moshiach, he's going to bring back the right hand to the front. Anyway, it's unusual for Rashi to say anything like that. It's not Rogil. So we see that Rashi said, but that, in the Chumash, Rashi didn't make any mention of all that. He just calls it Kates. So we'll see as we go along. Anyways, so he says to him, oh yes, he wants to be Mavakish, the Galas is a Kates. Then he started him in a Shechina. So, Omar Shema Chas B'Sholem, Young Avinu said, maybe, God forbid, Yesh Psul Bizarri. Maybe there's a Psul in my generation, in my children. There's something wrong, not kosher. That's why when I went to reveal in the case, all of a sudden the Shechina, disappears. And he says, Shemoy Avraham Avi, Sheyotzim Memenu Yishmael, that he had Avi Abba, my grandfather, that he had a child like Yishmael. Okay, Yitzchak Avi Sheyotzim Memenu Esau. Maybe I've also got something I don't know about him, that he's also a hidden Yishmael or a hidden Esau or a Chais Mitwas. Amru loy bono. They said to him, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. So that's not written yet in the Torah, and yet nonetheless they're saying, oh well, here we are, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. So Rashi says Yisrael means Avihim. That means that they said to him, listen here, Tate, Shema Yisrael, listen here, Yisrael, meaning Yaakov Avinu. You should know that Hashem Elokeinu, our Abishah, the Abishah that you hold from, the Abishah that we hold from, he is all one. And he said, Kashem she'ein believe ela echad, kach ein belibeinu ela echad. Just like you hold from echad, we also hold from echad. We hold by the Emes Yichud and the Emes Achtas. Yad posek Yaakov Avinu. When Yaakov heard that, then he said, oh, ve'oma baruch she'ein chayid malchus le'elam. In other words, Yaakov Avinu said that expression, Baruch Shem, Chayid Malchus Le'elam Foed, that's like a sort of a grateful, what you might call, acknowledgement and confirmation of what they said, Hashem Echad. He said, Baruch Shem, Chayid Malchus Le'elam. I might think him Cain, that's the same thing as Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Therefore, the Gemara goes over the whole Arichas, the whole famous marshal, it's also brought down in Jewish Chassidus and also in the famous Mitzvah Tefillah over there and everything. The whole marshal about a Bas Melech, a princess, that when she smelled that once they were given dinner, she smelled in a pot there was some very, very market pieces left over at the bottom of the pot called Tzikei Kedera. And they can make a very interesting smell because they're still standing on the gas or whatever, and they're sort of just like getting towards the end of the pot, and it makes a nice smell. So she smelled it, but since she's the Bas Melech, and she's not allowed to say openly she wants the leftovers, so she can't say afterwards. So what does she do? She sort of makes a sign in a whisper to some of the servants, and they bring her the Tzikei Kedera to eat. And so from that, it's mashma that Baruch Shem Chayid Malchus Le'elam word is not mamish to say Madrega Shema. It's something that's sort of like a little bit lower. Because it's not the same Madrega, therefore we say it quietly in order to, we should get all the hashpah from it, but we're not allowed to say it out loud. With a whole big marshal in the Gemara, mashma from that, the Baruch Shem Chayid Malchus Le'elam word is not mamish the same as Shema. But anyways, whatever. we see that the whole thing, and that's it, that's the Gemara. It doesn't say anything more about Bikish Legalis as a cave. You know, Mavakish Legal, what happened with the caves? My Karapo. You have a lot of people got the caves, and all of a sudden a whole mass, and yeah, but, you know, Baruch Shema Yisrael, and Baruch Shem Kved Malchus Eloheinu. Well, we should. Therefore, Yaakov Avinu wanted to be Makaveh there. Yeah, he wanted to be Makaveh the caves. But he saw that Mishtauch is Shechina. Yeah, he saw that the Shechina at the top of the bed, you know, the presence, because he was such a great tzaddik, and the Shechina withdrew. And therefore Yaakov Avinu said, boy, Kefal, maybe there's something wrong with my sons, you know, that I can't be Megala to them such a Gevaldik sword. And he brings a very famous Gemara here in Masechta Pesachim earlier, but the Gemara said that somebody is Am Ha'oretz, Shem Shmo, you know, I never saw Am Ha'oretz. You can't reveal to him secrets, because if you do, you know, he runs around and tells everybody, and he also misrepresents it, etc., etc. Therefore, you can't reveal to him important and hidden things. So since he saw the Shekhinah disappear, well, this is the view of a famous in the Ein Yankee. There's a sefer called the Ein Yankee. If I'm not mistaken, that was written by the very famous Rav in Europe, the guy of Yankee Emden. I say he wrote a sefer called the Ein Yankee. Anyway, whatever, he says that Yankee Avinu was worried that maybe sons, you know, that maybe they're not really, after all he's put into them, maybe, you know, they're not on that level, what he really thought they were, and therefore he can't, it's okay for him to be Megala the sword, yeah, but he can't reveal it to these guys, because maybe there's something missing with them, maybe they're not holding by this madrega that he put into them. And if Yaakov Avinu hesitated and he said, Shem ish pesul b'zari, meaning maybe there's some sort of, you know, inyonim there which don't allow them to be makabel such a high union that the cake comes on the Shvatim, and they say, oh no, they realize what's going on in Yaakov Avinu's mind, and they said, Kishem she'ein belibcha ela echad, kach ein belibcha ela echad. But at the end, Yaakov is not matter what did they want to prove with the echad. Whatever it seems to me that we can say that what the Mahalach here is, one of the ways that you can really hold by being interested in the Indian, not of the old Navy, but of the new Navy. Right? You got to be up to the date. You got to be into things. In other words, it's written on your old Navy only by way of a joke. And the emphasis is going to be in the new Navy. It's is that you got to hold by Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem. In other words, that you got to hold that the world is not a Matthias. The bittul kol ha'olamot. And if you hold that the world's a Matthias, they say, oh, they got to have something good around here. Got to be into Olam Hazeh, you know, got to. You know, it's not just if I got to have a car, I got to have a posh car, I got to have something else. I have a backyard, it's got to be a posh backyard. Got to be an Olam Hazeh. Comes along, I know succeed, and he says, give it a cook. The ganze Olam Hazeh, it doesn't really exist. It's, you know, on the contrary, you have to bring me a rye here to show me that Olam Hazeh. Which on the beauty is on the course, you know, the proof is on the other side. You're going to prove to me that this world really exists. I think from Tyson, or that the Eibishter exists, that everybody knows. Yeah, Hulavadi, Be'enzu, Hulavadi. How they used to call out in the Vayichi in the old days on Simchas Torah, you know, Ein Oid Milvada. There's nothing else apart from it. Ein Shum Dor. I mean, that's what they wanted to show Jan. They wanted to say, listen, you want to be the cake, yeah, then you should realize that Ein Billy Beina Ela, meer halt neuget by the Gili of Deasing, yeah, but the Gili of Deasing on him. And so you don't have to suspect us of being, you know, locked up in this world, We're not prepared to say we want Mashiach.
No.
So that's what's hidden behind the whole dialogue here in the Gemara. Let's say Yankov, you know about that? He said, Baruch Shem, Kved Malchus Elielo. Go ahead. And so the Gemara says, well, since Yankov said it, we have to say it. How are we going to say it? We say at least Hashoi. However, the Gemara doesn't say immediately after that they came back to Shechina. The Gemara does something. Once they said that, then the Shechina came back, and then he felt that he was able to be Megal Gate. But since the Shechina, it's not written in Gemara in my answer. It's only written what Yaakov Avinu felt. And it ends with that, with a whole have a cake. People would have said, yeah, we said it not, we said it out loud, we said it quietly. And the Gemara doesn't mention the fact that the Shechina came back. So we have to assume that what the Gemara means is that the Shechina didn't come back. And therefore Yaakov felt that it's not a psur in his sons. It's a inyan that Dave doesn't want cloud that he should say. But that whole inyan of Bikish Legalis is a cave. And therefore he started off another inyan. But that Lashon Hishchil B'dvarim Acherim does not occur in the Gemara. And neither does it occur in the Medrash. It doesn't occur in the Medrash Rabbi either. So we have to say that Rashi puts that in to help you understand the Pshutei Shumikra, that if he wanted Levakish to say Kates, he said, well, this is Gemara, so you start looking, and you don't see that he was Miguel the Kates anywhere. He was it. He mentions one or two places. Yeah, Melech HaMashiach, almost as part of the flow, but not specially. Where's the case? So we have to assume that Yaakov decided that he would say other inyonim, not Cholila, Mamish other inyonim, Kemurim, Shein Lem Kol Kesher, or Balchaponim. You have to modify his whole approach. So the Shaila is whether, according to all that, and with the whole view of the Yun Yankiv, for the whole Arichas, we don't see that Yaakov Avinu didn't know when the case was. It just appears that he decided he wouldn't go into it anymore. And he felt that wasn't what the Eibster really wanted of him. He still knew about the case. In the Medrash, as we brought out before, the Medrash Rabbah says clearly that Nishtam Mimenu, the case was hidden from Yaakov. But Nishkasim Mimenu, another place. And the interesting thing is that the Medrash brings down a whole series of other inyanim in which this whole story about Baruch Shein Kved Malchus Elielo and the sons saying to Yaakov and Havaya Ken Havaya Chod brings it down without mentioning the case. That's a whole shit in the Gemara. It doesn't even mention the case. It just brings down that Yaakov Avinu said to them, gather around, and he made a hint to them that he wanted to talk about the Eibster, the whole thing about without going into all the details. And then all of a sudden, he sort of was worried that maybe these are not ready, and then they said, oh yes, we are. So, don't mention no Indian of Gilui Arcades over there. But where it does mention the Gilui Arcades is it mentions other things as well. It mentions that Yaakov Avinu wanted to be Megaga, the Muhammad of Goy Gumogay. He wanted to show them what Goy Gumogay is going to be and how it's going to be. And then another point that's written there that he wanted to be Megaga, the Binyan Beis HaMikdash. So according to the Medrash, Yaakov Avinu was really informed. He wanted to be Megaga, all these things. At the end, and the Medrash says that he saw that Nistalcha Hashchina V'nishtavu Mimenu, and all these things were taken as it were away from him. And then it brings a dogma from Daniel, the same thing. That it was Kilo Chasum, even the Gabi Daniel, the whole week, and then brings another marshal about somebody wanted to tell the secrets of the king. And then all of a sudden he saw the king sort of pointing to him, doing like this, he shouldn't do that. And so then he all of a sudden decided not to do it. And Yaakov Avinu saw the Shekhinah literally above his bed, but then the Shekhinah said, well, wait a minute, if you're going to talk about these things, here we go. And Yaakov Avinu saw that that's not good, so therefore he said, well, no, we won't talk about that. And then everything was okay. So the whole nusach of the Medrash is different than the nusach of the Gemara. But the upshot in Sfora is also different. Always is that the Dover Hashover Bein Kulam is that Yaakov at least in one Indian here, Bikish Legalis is okay. Everybody agrees that he did agree to do that. It's just whether, under what circumstances was this whole Indian of Avaya Echad connected with that. And we explained why that would be connected. In other words, that the Gemara links two opinions which are obviously there, but Kabbalah Mirabi Seinu. And the Gemara links them together for the reason that I just pointed out to show that the Indian of Yehuda Eloah and the Emes understanding, the Bittul of the Oilamet, Al Pipnimis HaTorah, is got a connection with the Indian for knowing for the Gula and for the readiness to be Mavakish Legalis is okay. And therefore we see that the Tavki by the Loim de Chsidah, Tavki by Chsidus HaKlolias Afila, that the Indian from the Yisraelis to Moshiach has always been more, and ever since the Baal Shem Tov, the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, was Miskala Ba'ilam, there's been a tremendous iskabris of the whole Indian Beneged to Moshiach. And for Eilu Shaloilam do Pnimis HaTorah, Derech Klal, believe that that's absolutely, an ironclad cloud, Al Chaponim, Al Pi Haruiv, not being so, how do you call it, Mislahiv and Mispashil in the Indian of Legalis Sakate, or Lahovius Sakate, the Indian from Moshiach. And that's what we could say, the remnants of the Gemara, that Yaakov Avinu was concerned, maybe there's something in his sons that they can't really be ready for this cloud. And there we have to have the Indian from Avaya Echad, Yehuda Eloah, Yehuda Tatorah. Well, that's the Indian from Shara Yichud Ve'emunah. And according to certain opinions, what the Rebbe brings them down, the Rebbe Melech Moshiach brings them in the letters, that Shara Yichud Ve'emunah was written before the Sefer Shel Beinunim, or Al Chaponim. The Alter Rebbe intended it to be learnt first before you learn Sefer Shel Beinunim. But that's a very interesting Indian, Ashmei, etc., and also it's mashma at the end of the Chinuch Koton, right at the end of the little Chinuch Koton over there, which is Chelik Sheni, Shel Sefer Shel Beinunim. The Alter Rebbe says that today, to understand this, Koidem Tzrichim Ahaktim Esamuna Tohira Upashuta Behavaya Echad. And he goes immediately into Havaya Echad, but that's Beyehuda Eloah, Beyehuda Tatorah. Those are the Gemara Yeshloim. That you have to have a Chayas and a brain in Yehuda Eloah and Yehuda Tatorah today to understand what is this whole Indian of Bikish Legalis is Hakei. And to have a Chayas in the Indian from Bikish Legalis is Hakei. And then what's going on? A famous story about the Mitzvah Rebbe, not a famous story. The Mitzvah Rebbe, that he said that the whole reason why he devoted himself so much to Pnima, there's been a reason to the story, but I'm telling the main Kuda, the Sipur, the Rebbe, that he said, why did he spend so much of his time in the Inif and teaching Pnimis HaTorah and learning Pnimis HaTorah and being Meifit Pnimis HaTorah, because he wanted that when two young guys would meet themselves on the street. But in those days the street wasn't a big posh Broadway or something. Even the street was a funny little muddy little place there somewhere out way out in the depths of the Golas. When two people would meet, well, I'm saying the Broadway is not the depths of the Golas, it's even more. But anyway, they would meet in the muddy little street way out in Vayichi and Chernovitz and the other Stettlers was the given dort, and they should ask one another, what's herzach in Yehuda Eloah and what's herzach in Yehuda Tatorah? They should ask one the other what's happening in Yehuda Eloah, or upon him at least what is happening in Yehuda Tatorah. Well, I would have thought that somebody would at least roll off his chair when he heard that, but everybody takes it very calmly and everybody's very much in charge of Shlita Samoichin, how they call it Chokma Bina V'das, very powerful around here. Oh, anyway, whatever, that's what the Mitzvah Rebbe said. So that's the preparation equation. That's what the Gemara says. It's all connected. You want to prepare the world for Bikish, Legalis, is a case. You have to bring in Yehuda Eloah and Yehuda Tator. And Yaakov Avinu was married. Is that there? And the father, the sons, they knew what was coming up. They said, oh yes, we have that as well. We're going to help by Yehuda Eloah and Yehuda Tator. Upon it. That's why we say the Gemara connects the two. That's what it seems to me. By way of passage, we could learn why the Gemara connects those two in Yonim together. Mashenkin and the Medrash Rabbah, the two separate statements where they get a lot of that they're Tluim Ho B'Ho. It comes out that according to the Gemara and the way she quotes it, we don't have to say that Yaakov Avinu himself lost the case. He still knew it, but he saw it wasn't proper to talk about it. Mashenkin, according to the Medrash, he also Yaakov Avinu didn't at that point, and further he also lost the Gilead of the case. So what's this whole meaning that we see here that Yaakov Avinu right from the very beginning, the whole parasha, Rashi says, is governed by this idea. Yeah, Vayichi, which is the opposite of Nistamu Eineihem. Nonetheless, what is good of the Chai is that you can be alive even though you're still in Golos. Yeah, what is the whole the Indian Bikish Legalis is okay. So there's a famous Sikha from the Rebbe Melech Mashiach in Chelik Kov. But the Rebbe out there doesn't build himself on Rashi. It's not so much. There's another Sikha where the Rebbe does build himself on Rashi. Like I quoted over here, that the Rebbe says the two Psufim are the key to this whole inner. We mentioned earlier. That's in the Havana Pashtus of Rashi. But the Rebbe brings down this statement of our sages that Nistalcha Menashchina when Bikish Legalis is a gate. And the Rebbe quotes the whole Maimon Chazal Bikitza. He doesn't go with all the different Gilsois and all the Yonim. But the Rebbe gets onto these two questions. First of all, he gets onto the question that why would Yaakov Avinu want to reveal the case? I mean, Rabbeinu Shalom would cause a tremendous, how do you call it, Nefila by people. And Afila will say that he wanted to reveal only the case of Mitzrayim. Because Yaakov Avinu, being as he was from the Oves, and the Oves had a tremendous chayes of bringing the Gilead of Mashiach into the world, or what we call the Gilead of Mashiach. They wanted to bring the Shleimus Kola Gilead Lakus into what we would call the Gilead of the Gula Shleima, or Bismano, as well known. We've spoken about that before in other Shulim. Yaakov Avinu had a big brand. That was his whole reason why he sent Yosef to meet the Shvatim. And the Tzarich is that he was trying to bring the Gilead of Elakus Lamata, just how it will be Bismano Mashiach. So maybe Yaakov Avinu saw the Inyan from Mitzrayim, and the Geula of Mitzrayim as being already the moment to bring the Geula Shleima. So you'd say that he wasn't going all that far ahead into history. And when he meant the word Kate, he didn't mean, who knows, thousands of years ahead. He meant But the Rebbe's point over there is that it doesn't really matter what you talk. So you're talking 210 years down the line. Yeah, 300 to 400 down the line of the people in that generation and who are not going to live 210 years of Pitevach, and they're not going to live that long. After that, there might be Chaim Nitzchim of what's with the two generations until then. Like I said, what have we got to do with it? It's going to be hanging around here in the Golas, and then there's going to be a Gula Shleima. You don't really earn a great deal, even if you say that Yaakov Avinu was only to the Inyan from Mitzrayim, and that then it would be the Emes of Gior. In every passage we have to say he meant the Emes of case. What did he want, Yaakov Avinu? And we have to say that he wanted something, because he, like we said before, he was a Merkava to the Shechina, and everything he did was al pi alakus. So this whole Inyan of Bikish Legalis as a case must mean something. It must have some point to it. So the Rebbe said over there that what he was after Yaakov, that he was beika after to show them the two inyanim in the case is what we call the case which will eventually be if nothing happens. And then there's a case of what we call achisheno, being swifter. And Hashem will bring it much quicker. If the avoid of Yidden will be beseder, then there'll be this bringing of the Geula earlier. Yankee Avinu wanted to be Megala the decades, but at the same time, he wanted to show them that that's the way, according to it's the way it is, mitzad, the way the Eibishter arranged history, as you might say, without you guys interfering. However, if you interfere, and your mamish be, even from the Seiras, Tshuva, and the Seiras, Veda Amitias, and we want Mashiach now, etc., etc., so then the Eibishter will bring it much, much quicker. In other words, if Yaakov wanted to be Megala the Kades, in order to show him, it looks a terrible time, but if you really worked and you wanted to wait that long, Bichlal, Bedugmas, wie es given in Mitzrayim. The Eibishter can be Machashiv with a Kade. He wanted to give him with this tremendous, what you might call zeros, or motivation, make sure that the Geula would be B'derach Achishena. It would be Davki B'derach Achishena. I'll bring it earlier, through your having made yourselves worthy. So the Rebbe says, that's tremendous, and no doubt about it, that's a very good idea. Why is it the Rebbe didn't agree to that? The Rebbe said, no, you start it, Ashchina, you have to talk out of Yonim, we can't allow you to do that. You can't be Megala as a case. So the Rebbe says a very we have a fascinating Indian there, that if we'll say that we'd already been Megala the case, and the Rebbe's already shown Yidden how much you can alter it all, if you just make it means that right from the very beginning the Rebbe's just given them a tremendous help, and he's given them a big boost forward. And to a certain extent it means that in everything they'll be doing, the Eivish has already shown them that. He's already there with them in a way that it's like he's doing just as much as it's their doing. So the Rebbe said the embassy in an Avodah is when you don't see and you don't really know, you've already been told that you can hurry things up. That's all you need. You don't need to know any more than that. You don't need to know how much you can hurry it. In what to be comparing the whole time with what the divine thing is when they get to when it's going to be. He said because the whole Indian from Emasa Avaida is dafka when you change yourself and you change the world, milmata l'mayla, not milmayla l'mata, not through any sort of presence of the Eivish in your Avaida, begolui. No, it seems almost that you've been told you've got to do it on your own. But if you do, then there'll be divine help. But that will be tremendously begolui, which will make it clear that the Eivish is doing everything. Now, on the contrary, it's going to be like a certain gap where it's going to be you only. That you're struggling with the hell of a hester of the world, and you're changing the whole union of the world, and you're bringing the union from Gilead Mashiach. All you know is there can be a Zamatzias for Achish, and you don't know how it's going to be, and in what oifen, and you don't compare it to any amount of time. And it says that if that happens, then what it means is that you literally gain a koyach to make everything that you do as a created being, to make it lasting and everlasting. In other words, that you bring into your limited Aveda a certain everlasting power, because to a certain extent it's on your own. And so since it's on your own, it comes from the emerson genuineness that a Yid has got to honor from the etzem of his nefesh, from the pnimis of the neshama, and it's not as it were the Eivish just leading him the whole time with a hand. And I remember there's a famous Torah from the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov once said, it's a very famous clown, that we say in Tehillim, and it's in one of the Tehillim of the Yom Yom. It's in Yom Sheni. We say at the end of that capital, we say, Hui Hanagenu Al-Mus, that the Eivish will take us, literally Al-Mus, which means in past is higher than death. But it's two words, Al-Mus. But if you look in the Tillim, then you see that it's really one word, and it's just that you read it as two words. And so one word, if you put those two phrases together, two phrases, you put them together, you get almus. And the word elem with the ayin in Lashon Kodesh means a child. Hu yehanagenu almus, that the Eibishter will guide us like a child. So I said to Baal Shem Tov, whoa, that's gewaldig. The Eibishter will guide you like a child. It means he's going to just lead you the whole way, and he'll do everything for you. You have to do a bit, you have to move your legs, or he's just going to move you along, and you'll be... That's exactly what the Rebbe said. If young Yevina would have been Matzliach, to a certain extent, you would have been held no Maila. So you think, well, that's what the Pasuk said. So the Baal Shem Tov said, oh no, that's not what the Pasuk said. The Baal Shem Tov said that I am as a father who's leading the child. What does he do? At a certain point, he goes, and he withdraws. And then, then you're on your own. Then you got to move your feet with your own coin. And if not, yeah, you stub your toe and you're on your nose. You understand? That's what happens to one in Islam. So the Baal Shem Tov said, almost is picked for care. Not that he was just leading us the whole time. No, he's leading like you lead a child. An intelligent father draws a child, but then all of a sudden he leaves go. And then you can do it yourself. That's all you're doing. It's all you're doing. And that's an everlasting thing. That's a thing which has, because if you're very etchem, and Einoch Hanami, that brings the Eibishter into the world, but you bring the Eibishter. Not he's there, and he's just helping you along. If he's there, that brings a new vista into the whole Aveda, bringing the Geulah. That to a certain extent, we prepare the world for the everlastingness of the Geulah. I told the Shai, what's with Yaakov Avinu? So some people say that Yaakov Avinu also lost the case. That Yaakov Avinu, even as the leader of the Gamsi Klal Yisrael, he's got to be a bit like them. He has to lead them, but he's got to, as it were, have the same basic problem, as you might say. However, what about the opinion of the Gemara that he doesn't necessarily lose the case? So the Rebbe said over there, he said that Al Yedei, what Yaakov Avinu doesn't lose the case. Then Yaakov Avinu gives into you a power that how can a mensch be in the Golas and it slept so many years, and a year to just sit in the Golas, and nonetheless he'll say, we Mashiach. No. How can that be? And we see that, the Golas, guess what? People say, yeah, they just sit in the Golan. And therefore said to the Rebbe that there's this inner restlessness of the Yid. You know he's been left by that father on his own a bit, But deep inside, Yaakov Avinu knows when the case is going to come. Yaakov Avinu, deep inside, who you're there. He's putting inside you this leviticate about the case. It's not just that you've got Kabbalah sale, but you have leviticate about the case, and you never really, how do you call it, are satisfied. You never join forces with the goals. You never really say, I'm quite happy in the goals. I've got a very beautiful situation. I got a lovely car, I got a nice house, I got a beautiful base medrash, big posh base medrash on 5th Street or something, I go there and we sit there and we learn the Torah and it's Baldi. There's everything you can need. There's air conditioning and there's warming. There's coffee and tea and bickies and all sorts of ingredients you couldn't possibly imagine everywhere. This is Kabbalah. Once again, these Moshiach Chabadniks, they vertragen over to Mashiach. Mashiach, the Rebbe says that at least the fact that Yaakov, he didn't lose the case, he still got it inside him. He at least gives in to you, at least b'makif, the Rebbe said. At least b'makif, there's something in you that tells you, even though it's not mamish b'pini. He said it tells you that you can't really, at your better moments, that you can't come to terms with this Golas And deep inside you say, with all the milers and with all the good things and with all the do's and the doers, I got to get out of here. This is not mine. This is not my place, guys. And we're going to rise out of here.
Nice.
So therefore, the Rebbe brings an amazing thing that we see that how do you call him? Moshe Rabbeinu, the fact that he wanted to go on there to Yisrael and he wanted to give all the Yidden this re'iyah in Eretz Yisrael. It didn't work for him, but he gave it into certain great people throughout the generations that they do have. And those are the Moshe Rabbeinus in every generation, and they have the same way that Rabbi said, we see that all through the generations there were certain great people that they really got into the Indian of the Geula unusually for their generation or for their couple of generations. And they even wanted to say when the case would come, they what to call Choshvei HaKates. They worked out when the girl was supposed to come. Amongst them, Rabbeinu Sadia HaGoren, Mamish from the Geonim, that's well known that he wrote certain calculations when they get to the Geula. So the Rebbe said, what's he writing? And the Rabbeinu Sadia HaGoren, what's he writing when the Geula might come, when it mightn't come? Mine after Mina Bedora. He was so impatient that Musa and the Geula that he felt he has to fix a date and Musa have to stand it. And even the Rambam writes about it. Certain places in the Moira Nebuchim are other places. And Befrat in the famous Igeres, that's even more exact. In the Igeres Tchias Amazing, the Rambam writes over there certain calculations. We almost look at it, he's saying, yeah, here we go.
Doesn't Rashi also say?
Huh?
Doesn't Rashi say also?
Well, maybe Rashi did, but I'm not familiar exactly with where, but maybe sometimes everything can be. Oh, remember, if he said that is an Indian not to be able to be satisfied in the Golas without the good, and to see every moment as a Golas, and therefore not be able to come to terms with the Indian of the Golas. Therefore I saw in a Sefer, when he brings down a pillar to Gazar, he said, we see that people go into the Golas, and they think, this is great, he said they build these beautiful houses, and they have all the unbelievable things that they need, and they get to do it, they get rich. So when you talk to these people about Mashiach, they go, come on, let's ask the child, Mashiach. Hey, leave me alone. It was the Chinese. So he brings down for the Sefer HaDoiros. Now the Sefer HaDoiros is an unbelievable God. What the Russians do with the Sefer HaDoiros. Don't anyway, it's getting late. You guys have already had enough. Don't know. We know the famous story about the Sefer HaDoiros. The Reina Yechiel Halperin was his name. They went out going. Nowadays you see computers. Yeah. He was before the age of the computer generations, but he was a walking computer.
What was his name?
Rabbeinu Halperin. And he's called the Seder Hadar. He wrote a history book about all the generations from Adam Arishon all the way up to his point. And then he wrote all about the Tanoim V'Amorim. He wrote a big part of his sefer all about the Tanoim V'Amorim for each one of them. He says about their life, what he did. He brings them and crushes them. It's just impossible. It's impossible. It's just from everywhere, from the Zohar Kodesh, from all the Sifrei Kabbalah, from the Kisvei Arizal, everywhere and anywhere. He was unbelievable.
How long ago?
So he was not all that long ago. The Seder does, maybe about 2 generations. He was just before the communists in Russia, not all that long. So anyway, you know what happened with him? That he was a Rav in Minsk. I don't know about Russia. I'm not sure where Minsk is. There's a place called Minsk.
It's in Belarus, same place, same country as Lubavitch.
It's in the same country as Lubavitch?
Sure, it's in Belarus.
Right. Anyway, Minsk. So he was a Rav there, the Seder HaDoiros, and he was when he passed away. What it means, they made his grave in a certain place. In a basic quarter. And all of a sudden, the communists decide they're going to build a road or a trainway through that area. I think it was a road. well, what are we going to do? So they see this because they moved. There was a lot of the small graves. They see this big grave in their way. So they bring up these big tractors and everything, you got to get rid of it. And no matter what they tried, if they weren't what's clear, the tractors folded up. Or they brought, big sledgehammers to jump back and hit the people. They had all sorts of casualties and all sorts of wild. They couldn't affect this grave over that time. But they just couldn't figure what on earth is going on. So in the end, what are they going to do? They're coming. They don't believe in spiritual things. They're allowed to tell people that they couldn't destroy this break. If they do, then their whole reason to actually doesn't exist. So what are they going to do? So I've never been there in Minsk. Maybe it's some of the guys. This is what I heard. I'm only going by what. Have you been in Minsk?
No.
So they claim that what they did to Russians, they built an iron fence around this grave. They put up a notice on it in Russian saying that this guy was a historian, which he was. He wrote to say that he was a historian. Since he was a great historian and he was Turem to the knowledge of humanity and history, that they saw it right to leave his grave, not to destroy. They saw the right thing not to destroy his grave, and therefore they couldn't do it to make a big, detour. They couldn't. They could. That's the Seder Adoros. Anyway, the Seder Adoros brings. This is just a bit of icing on the cake. The Seder Adoros brings that when the Yidden of Chmonim and Klan, when they went into Golis from Beis Speak to Shlisha, from Beis Shlisha, then most of them went to Paras, to where Mordechai Nestor was. But there was one big community went to a place which is now Germany, it was called Vermiza, or Worms, and matter of fact, she was there. Vermiza, and they set up a big community over there, and they became very rich, and they became powerful with the Goyim over there, and all sorts of masters. But either the Yidden that went into Brass, they got into Chodas, with Homan, and with Dachashverosh, with Chodas, and Chodas Turas. So in the end, then there was a whole Geula, and the Yidden came back. And Achashverosh, in the end, he sent the Yidden back to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. It wasn't not Achashverosh, Dariovich, who followed Achashverosh. Anyway, they came back. So they wrote letters to these guys in Vermiza, and they said to them, please come over and join us and help us build the Beis Hamikdash. So these guys answered them, this whole big kehillah over there, answered us, we've got, Baruch Hashem, we're very well settled over here. You've got big Jerusalem, this is small Jerusalem. Yeah. And they said, we've got a nice house here, we've got everything, we're good with the government here. Yeah. We're still keeping the Torah, leave us alone. So the Seder Adoros, he's a man, he said that we find that the majority of tzaddiks, and this was before the Holocaust, the majority of tzaddiks of Yidden in the Golas began or were centered around the Germans and around Germany. And this Vermiza is a place in Germany. He said, because Yidden said, we don't want the Beis Hamikdash, so we're not in a hurry for it, we got time, and Lo Boer, that Rachmon in the Klan is like a sword. I said, because said in the Sefer, and I looked up and I said, strike the Sefer there. The Sefer there. Peeling the floors, mother.
Where are these letters documented,
The
letters between the two communities?
I don't know where they are, but he claims that they are. I think you have to rely on him to say that. Probably in some sort of what do you call it, historical museum or something. So anyways, whatever, some people say that you can't come to terms with the gods. And who is that? Some people, that is the Rebbe Melech Mashiach, that's his whole message. You can't come to terms with the gods. You can't say, this is a nice place, leave me alone, let me rest, don't hack me a Chinese. But in front of Gehula, Mashiach, I'm fine. And not only I'm fine, but I got to pay some medicine. The Rebbe says, Mother says, the Rebbe says you have to be ready every second to go out, to go to Shrei, Yeah, I want to go out. Before this came from down there, I want to get out of here. And it occurred to me, why is it there's so much unfortunate situation here in Eretz HaKoitos? We've got all these guys that there's going to be a summit meeting, you know what that means? Oh, yeah, that means it's all been agreed on. Everything has been agreed on. All they got to do is just sign on the dotted line. And he's going, this guy, which means he's going to sign away the whole cradle of Jerusalem. Yeah. And it's all money in the cloud. It's all written. It's all ready to be signed.
We don't know what's going on.
Rev?
We don't know what's going on.
Oh, you don't?
No.
No, it's good for you. I know what's going on. It's better for you. I also, but I hear, you know, I sort of pick up the vibes, you know. I get exposed to these, you know, if I don't want. What are the fellows with these lamas here? Because the whole inner, the Tzionis, exactly what the Seder Torah said. The whole inner, the Tzionis was in Eretz Yisrael. The people in Eretz Yisrael, what I need Mashiach. I got an army, I got everything I need, I got a big Medina, I got everything I need. Lama needs Mashiach. Well, that's not shining with Mashiach. And I feel like the so-called Datim Lumiyim and all that, they said, no, Mashiach. The government is holy, that's what they're holy for. And that's the sort of, that's why these guys can't hold it. They're giving it away like hotcakes, it's burning their finger. They can't hold it. Because if you say that the Golas is a Matthias, does a Hebrew from Yaakov Avinu said it's not a Matthias. And he bigishly Golas, the Rebbe said he does it still. He's still deep inside the Neshama Vayit. Yaakov Avinu is talking to him, he's saying to you, listen here, don't be satisfied with this unbelievable Matthias called Golas. And whenever does it upshot, and therefore it doesn't matter. Rashi just says, Bikish, Yaakov, Galas, is okay. Damn, the finish of it all. Well, you know, Kimina. She's meint, Zaprat. Biki is long and shoy, machen us up. Let's make an end to the whole thing. That's the Rashi. Bikish, Yaakov, Galas, is okay. It's an unbelievable thing. Pile plus. Van a man. And therefore, I'll just finish with one word from the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach. There's a sikh what the Rebbe said in Toshim and Gimel. And the Rebbe said that when Yosef comes in and Yaakov says, you're going to make an oath that you won't bury me here. And he says that you will, he said to Yosef, you carry me out of here, you lift me up, literally, you elevate me, carry me out of here, and you bury me in the Baruch Samapela. So the Rebbe brings it written in the Kisvei Arizal that when Yaakov Avinu said to Yosef in the Sosanim in Mitzrayim, he was talking to the Abish, he wasn't talking to Yosef. And he says that the word Yosef can refer sometimes to the Abish, as they state in the Arizal. So it's clear that when Yaakov Avinu said, he said to the Abish without the business of him dying, without him being buried in the Ma'aseh Makpeh, he just said to the Abish, even though these are his best years, the 17 years, the Baraturi, the Alter Rebbe, that they were the 17 best years of Yaakov Avinu, nonetheless he says to the Abish, and the Hosanim, we would try and get me out of here. And it's a Bezunder Zach, it's like a special little thing I want to tell before Hosanim in Ma'aseh. That's a Bezunder Zach. That's a separate, that's a ability Zach. Yaakov Avinu says today was the whole time in the Sasani and they were trying to take me out of here, man. Even though they were his best years, it is his best years. Both things are true. You can have Gesundheit. Why should you have bad years? So why should anything be not good? You can have the best time of your life. But you got to say, but any second, I want to be out of here. Well, we're going to be back to Shulchan Avinu. We're going to be back to the table of our Father. The Eibishter and the Rebbe Melech Mashiach. Amen. King Hirotzen. And Mamela should have a good Shabbos, guys. So remember that Vayichi, the Amos of the Leviticite, is Yechi Adinenu Marenu Rabbeinu Melech Mashiach Le'el Moreh.